All right, Chair Bird, we are live.
All right, thank you. I will now call to order the October 16th, 2024 meeting of the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Coordinating Council. Good afternoon. It's good to see all of you. And welcome to those of you who are viewing the meeting on the Department of Sentencing Policy's YouTube channel. This is the fifth meeting of our 2023 through 2025 meeting cycle. I will now ask Director Powers to take the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Michael Chop. Demar Dahl. Bill Ferguson. Dylan Frainer. Mackenzie Hilton. Clinton Hohenstein.
Here.
Brenda Ingram.
Present.
Eric Kern. Chelsea Maza. William McCurdy. Julia Murray. I am marking her present. James Phoenix.
Present.
Garrett Pruitt. Dorothy Raleigh.
Present.
Stephen Rye.
Here.
Bryce Shields. Clinton Zenz. Chair Bird.
Present.
Chair Bird, we do not have a quorum at this time.
Okay. So I think with that being said, since we don't have a quorum, if we come to an agenda item that requires voting and a quorum, we will have to table it. Okay, thank you, Georgia. Now we'll move to Hunter so she can take public comment. I will now open agenda item number 2, the first period of public comment. There are 2 periods of public comment, one at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end. Members of the public have 2 options for submitting public comment. First, members of the public may do so in writing by emailing the Department of Sentencing Policy at sentencingpolicy@ndsp.nv.gov. Public comment received in writing will be provided to the council and be included by reference in the minutes of the meeting. Members of the public who wish to testify may do so by telephone. Due to time constraints, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. Any member of the public that exceeds the 2 minutes limit may submit your comments in writing to the Department of Sentencing Policy. Callers, as a reminder, please mute the device on which you are watching the meeting. All sound will come through your telephone. At this time, I will ask staff to manage and direct those who will wish to testify. Ms. Jones?
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public who would like to testify by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, press *6 to unmute, then please slowly state and spell your first and last name. And it looks like there is no one who would like to testify for public comment.
Thank you, Hunter. I'll close the first period of public comment. Moving on to agenda item 3, members of the council have been provided copies of the minutes from the August 28th, 2024 meeting. I guess if there are any edits or comments from those online, we could add them now, but we will not be voting at this moment as we do not have a quorum. Is there any suggestions, edits, or changes at this time? Okay, we will move on to, we'll close that agenda item and move on to the next agenda item, which is discussion of our grants. Our NDSP management analyst, Marie Bledsoe, will go over the programmatic considerations of our grant.
Thank you, Chair Bird. Give me 1 second and I will share my screen. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon. I'm Marie Bledsoe. I'm the management analyst with the Nevada Department of Sentencing Policy. And this is part 2 of walking the council through the Nevada Local Justice Reinvestment Grant Awards for 2024. In the last meeting, we covered a fiscal overview, looking at all the grants awarded in rounds 1 through 6. We looked at the grant funding distribution across the state, and we did a deep dive into what was funded. In this meeting, we're going to cover a programmatic dive looking at the big questions from the NLJR's grant application with an eye toward future opportunities, a peek at what was missing from the grant application, and a look at what the NDSP is calling project buckets. One note I want to make is that the first quarterly programmatic reports are due from each grantee on October 31st, 2024. Those reports will cover from the beginning of each recipient's grant through the end of September. Unfortunately, we do not have any of that grant data to share with this meeting, but we can look at programmatic considerations and lessons learned from some of the application data questions. So let's start with the 4 big data questions from the grant application. And what I mean by a big question is the specific questions that were asked in the NLJR grant application where some data can be drawn. So the first question in the grant application was, what type of program is this? And the applicant was provided with a specific list to choose from. The list included pretrial, diversion, work crew, and so on. During this grant process, 20 applications were received and 11 grant applications were awarded funding. And on this question, most applicants selected more than one program type. So for the programs that were awarded funding, this is how the numbers worked out. Reentry was selected 7 times. Specialty court was selected 5 times. Peer monitoring was selected 4 times. Housing was selected 3 times. Other categories were selected twice or once, and only one program type, which was work crew, was not selected by any of the funded applicants. When all the applications are added together, so this includes all the applications that were rejected for funding, we see that reentry was selected 15 times, drug and alcohol treatment was selected 9 times, peer monitoring 8 times, housing 7 times, and specialty court and mental health treatment rounded out the top of the list at 6 applicants each. Looking toward the future, here are some food for thought. The NLJR grant application did not define these terms, leaving each applicant on their own to determine what information was being requested. So for example, in this all column, we had more than one rejected applicant select all the program types for a single application, and then they added more items in the other category, essentially treating this like it was a task list. Another interesting example is applicants who provide mental health treatment plus drug and alcohol treatment and provide those services through a housing type facility. In that case, the applicant would have selected all 3 of these program types. But is that really what we wanted? When we are asking about housing, are we talking about assisting our target population with rent, or are we asking about a treatment facility? And finally, a high number of applicants selected reentry, but a read of some rejected applications led peer review committee members to conclude that the applicant program would help people in reentry if they kind of stumbled over them while they were doing business as usual. In several cases, these applicants were primarily focused on homelessness in general, not reentry specifically. So this became an issue for the peer review committees, and the successful applicants had a well-defined process for reaching out to our intended target population before these individuals left jail or prison. That became a dividing line for the reentry applications that got funding versus those that did not. So NDSP would like to recommend that the council consider reviewing this list to create more specificity around these terms for future grant opportunities. The second big question we asked in the grant application was, which of these goals does the program meet? Applicants were given 3 choices to reduce prison usage while maintaining public safety, reduce jail usage while maintaining public safety, or reduce recidivism while maintaining public safety. We also encouraged applicants to select all that applied. Here again, we are providing the numbers on the left for the organizations that were selected for funding, and on the right, we have the numbers for all applications received. Almost half the applicants tried to select all 3 goals, and the peer review committees were more selective with who received funding. Again, a detailed read of these applications revealed an agreement between the applicants who selected recidivism and the programs that were going to result from that program. So the good news is that the focus of most applications was on recidivism, which is a confirmation that most applicants understood the overall goal of the grant program. The uptick that you're seeing here, where we see the number 10, is reducing jail usage over recidivism, which was among our successful applicants who were providing forensic assessment services, triage team, or FAST services to our target population. The third big question asked in the grant application was, which crime types does the program serve? Applicants were given the choices of drug, DUI, property, violent, and other offenses, and again encouraged to select all that apply. So drug offenses came in number 1 for the successful applications, as well as across all of the applicants, even those that were not successful. This was followed down the list by DUI, property, and then violent offenses. The most interesting results came from the other offenses type, where applicants included sex offenders, youth-involved crimes and general misdemeanors, public nuisance like overuse of 911, alcohol offenses, offenses related to mental health diagnosis, and following a case plan or experiencing the loss of program benefits as an offense. So here again, we may want to take this as an opportunity in the future to expand our explanation of this section to make sure we're getting the data that we want. The final big question, number 4, was about assessments. And the questions we asked were, does this program use any assessments for participants? And then briefly describe how the assessments are used in the program. Our initial analysis of these questions reveals that these assessments tend to evaluate mental health, substance use disorders, and co-occurring conditions, making them heavy on the behavioral health side of the reentry recidivism equation. So NDSP needs to do a lot more analysis on the results from this question. So we're going to push this one off for a future meeting. So now let's take a minute to look at what was missing from the grant application. One question that we should have asked was, is the proposed project a continuation of services already being provided or an expansion of services? So while we didn't specifically ask this question, this became a big topic for the peer review committees who encountered it and had to contend with it. Among the 11 successful applicants, 2 were a continuation of services grant project and 9 were an expansion of services. When all 20 applications were pulled together, 9 applications were requesting funds to continue existing services and 11 were an expansion of services. So in the end, each of the 4 peer review committees consistently opted to fund programs that expanded services. Knowing this up front from the applicants would have been very helpful for the peer review committee members. Finally, we should have asked each applicant to please provide baseline data for the proposed project or program. So we have our 11 individually successful grant recipients, and because it's October, I'm going to mention that NDSP is a little bit in the dark with the data we should be expecting from these projects and how these individual projects will come together to address reentry and recidivism and reduce jail and prison usage in Nevada. When we get the narrative reports, NDSP will know more. But right now, we are not really sure what data we should be expecting. So more to come on that in a future meeting. Okay, so dark theme over. On to the good news. We were able to find commonality among funded programs and create 3 project buckets. Bucket 1 is Mobile Outreach Safety Team, or MOST, and Forensic Assessment Services Triage Team, or FAST teams. We have 4 projects in this bucket. Bucket number 2 is Mental Health Court and Substance Use Disorders. We have 3 projects here. And bucket 3 is Training and Employment with 3 projects. So adding these up comes to 10. The 11th grantee was Nevada Outreach and Training Opportunity. They presented last meeting, and they provide victim services in 9 Esmeralda counties. So victim services is essentially our 4th smaller bucket. So we're going to quickly go through these buckets and cover why their programmatic goals landed them in these particular places. So first, we've got Partnership Douglas County has MOST and FAST teams. They're using the funds to increase contacts in the community and in a jail setting to provide and then provide follow-up contacts. So this is an expansion of services grant. Lyon County Human Services is expanding their FAST team to include peer support specialist representatives and community health workers to increase services to our target population. So this is also an expansion of services grant, and both of these grant recipients presented their programs at the last meeting. Then we have Community Trust Incorporated. They had 2 successful grant applications, and just a reminder that the NLJR grant funds were being awarded by county. So CCI reached out prior to submitting their applications and asked if we wanted 1 application or 2, and we told them 2, and that's how they ended up with 2 awards. So CCI will be presenting in a few minutes. Their grant for Story County is a continuation of service grant, and their grant for Mineral County is an expansion of service grant. In both cases, they are continuing with mental health crisis calls either in the community or in a jail setting. Bucket 2 is our mental health and substance use disorders. We have Las Vegas Municipal Court with a grant for their mental health court. They are primarily trying to increase participation from 30 to 40 participants, making this an expansion of services grant. They're also working on the retention goals and want to do a better job with data gathering and analysis. Staff here had a scheduling conflict, so they will not be presenting today. Carson City Justice and Municipal Court is also using grant funds for their mental health court. They are also increasing participation by 10 participants, making this another expansion of service grant. We hope they will be sharing information about treatment plans and supportive services. Carson City will also be presenting today. And then the final successful grant in this bucket is Ridge House in Washoe County, where they're transforming the way they are doing business to a new program. So NDSP is calling this an expansion of services grant. We're looking forward to hearing about how they will identify and bring candidates into this facility's new program, the hours of intensive outpatient programming the participants will complete, and the relationship repair work that will be part of this new program. So Ridge House will also be presenting today. Finally, the third bucket is training and employment. And in this bucket, we have Humboldt County Human Services. They presented at our last meeting about increasing the rate of employment by their participants and securing employment documents. So this is an expansion of services grant. The city of North Las Vegas is starting a brand new youth court program where 3 cohorts of youth offenders will get career training and supportive services. North Las Vegas will also be looking at key interventions with this program. They will be presenting today, and this has been classified as an expansion of services grant. Finally, in the training and employment bucket, we have the Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow, or FIT. This is a continuation of services grant where FIT identifies candidates for their program before they leave jail or prison and then puts them on a positive path using robust training and employment services. They are also going to be providing their candidates with supportive services and work on relationship repair. So FIT will also be presenting today. All right, future reporting. So NDSP will be reporting at our next meeting on the first IFC report, which is due December 20th, 2024. NDSP will also be reporting on the results from the Grantees program reporting, which is going to be happening at the end of this month, October 31st. That's when the reports are due, and then we're going to compile them. We would still like to take a deeper look at grant applications that were rejected, and we want to look at how where we go next with considerations for funding. And that, Chair Bird, is the end of this presentation. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Marie. What questions do the council members and guests might have for Marie? Hearing and seeing none, we will close agenda item number 4. I think my numbers got off, so I'm going to open agenda item number 5 with the grantee presentations. We are pleased to welcome, is it still 5? I think I missed the one, Marie, that you said is not going to present today.
It's actually on your list. We left them off. We knew in advance that they weren't going to be presenting.
Okay, so they're already off. Okay,
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you. So we do have 5 presenters today of the NLJR grant recipient agencies for overviews of their programs and goals for their funding. So first we will hear from the Community Chest Inc. Eric Schoen will be our speaker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yay! First of all, it's nice to be here in Murray. It's nice to meet you. You and I have known each other for at least a few months by email. Yes. Well, so I'm here to talk a little bit about how we are utilizing your funds, but I think I kind of need to orient you to what kind of agency we are and our history and how this made sense given our current service profile. So Community Chest has been providing services in rural Nevada since 1991. We started in Story County, and we have since grown to 6 rural counties. We have offices in several of those counties. We provide blended health and human services, everything from comprehensive mental health counseling to substance abuse counseling, domestic violence advocacy, early child education, before and after school programming, summer programming, work case management programs, in-home case management and parenting support for kiddos, parents of kiddos between the ages of 0 and 5. Our food bank, we run the local county library here in Story County. So we're a bit of a different beast, if you will. A lot of agencies are more single issue, and we tend to, what we found early is that if we weren't providing it, generally in rural Nevada, no one was. So we have slowly learned how to do all of these things along the way. So I've been with the agency since 1996. If you're keeping track, it's almost 30 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. Never imagined I would be here this long. But here I am, and it's because I believe passionately in the work that we do. Specifically with respect to the 2 proposals that we put into place, we are utilizing community health workers because they are such a strong, potent, pro-social therapeutic source for providing the needed supports for a lot of the folks who are vulnerable in our different counties. So both Mineral and Story County proposals are very similar, but they're slightly different. So let me sort of talk about each one independently. In Story County, we have been working on mitigating the harm from opioids for the last 10 plus years. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we put together a county-wide opioid response plan with the input of all of the law enforcement, first responders, Story County Senior Services, ourselves, other providers, the public. And out of all the possible strategies or resources, the number one identified resource amongst all of us was having a central point of contact, i.e. a community health worker who's trained in mental health, first aid, signs of suicide, substance abuse, an overview of substance abuse, knows the resources and can be that external advocate for people. But the number one resource was having essentially a designated person to whom all of those referrals could flow for the vulnerable residents and others who are in need in Story County. And that quickly morphed into what you see in other counties, a fast-like and most-like response. So frequently the way that happens is when our deputies are out on a call, they come across a vulnerable person or a person of interest or a person for whom that might overlap. They will call our community health worker to co-respond or to follow up later. Same thing with first responders who may respond to a medical call, and if there's something that looks like it needs further investigation or resources could be helpful, and they'll call our community health worker to do an assessment and see what resources we can connect them to. Sometimes that community health worker is working with those people one-on-one, and there's really no other level of referral needed. Other times there is referrals are made to the appropriate sources, and they are assisted to make sure that they are connected to those resources. In Story County as well, our community health worker will respond when an inmate has been identified in the jail as needing some additional supports. Our community health worker will take the time to meet with that inmate, develop a care plan for them to address their immediate needs as well as when they are released. So hopefully we can reduce the likelihood of them ever coming back by having access to a supportive person, i.e. the community health worker, as well as a plan for connecting to needed resources. So that's Story County. So again, primarily plugged into, I would say, those different buckets, the most and fast-like responses, and then some, if you will, in terms of responding to generally anybody who's in need. And then in Mineral County, it's expressed slightly different. Still, we have a most and fast-like response. But because they are a newer program, we aren't quite as far along as having a most-like response. We do have a fast-like response, and that the jail is receptive and has graciously realized the value of utilizing a community health worker to support their jail population, which is great. We also help to we attend the weekly drug court staffings that they do there for Mineral County. And finally, we also have a community health worker who is embedded in the school system who can work with kiddos, students who are referred for a number of different reasons. Same idea, our community health worker can be that front line for a pro-social therapeutic point of contact, as well as a resource coordinator and connector. And then also, and what we have found in both cases, we have found that oftentimes that support of that community health worker is enough of a support that the person who's receiving that support is able to successfully address whatever issues and or problems they may have. Not always, I mean, it's not a panacea. There's some who need more, more support. But it's remarkable how often the case is when somebody has essentially somebody in their corner, somebody who's helping, who's being willing to be that systemic advocate or help kind of deal with the frustration of trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. How often that is all that's needed to help that person kind of on the right track. So the way that we primarily track that is we have 40 different funding streams, so we're very adept at tracking who we serve. And so all of our community health workers do an intake. They keep track of the services they deliver, and we have an idea of what the outcomes of those services are for all of those people being served. What the funding from you all has done for us in Story County is it's meant that we've been able to basically enhance the program by having a dedicated person who can, dedicated time, who can actually really focus on this, which has been really helpful because prior to this funding, it was not, well, we had funding, but it wasn't as dedicated. We didn't have as much concentrated time to be able to serve this function. So that's already, fortunately, being implemented because we had the staff on hand to hire and to just move into that position. Mineral County basically is an enhancement. So our staff have already been doing everything they've talked about, but what we are hoping to do is hire somebody who can make that their primary focus of their job. And it has been difficult, I'm not gonna lie. It's been difficult to find somebody who would be an appropriate person and or who's interested in the position. That being said, we finally have somebody that we think might be able to fit the bill, and so we're hoping within the next few weeks we can actually formally onboard that person to start services. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. If there's any comments, I can address those too. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that, Eric. Does anybody have questions for Eric? Okay, thank you again for joining us.
It looks like
Next.
Mr. Phoenix does have a question, Chair.
Speak
Oh,
up, but
sorry.
sorry, no, it's
There we go.
okay. I just wanted to tell you, hey, thanks for all the work as far as the most outreach type idea that you're doing, and that it does make an impact. I just wanted to ask how you measure your success and how is it reducing recidivism, and where's that data at? That's all I'm asking. You don't have to go into greater detail. Show me a graph. Just kind of a short snapshot.
Yeah, no, JJ, I think it's a great question, and I don't know that we're at the level of discrimination that as a group we would like to get to show that it absolutely contributes to reduced recidivism. Essentially, the way we measure success is, are we successful in meeting the needs of the people that we're meeting? So case by case basis, or have we been successful in helping to reduce their barriers or access treatment? Whether or not that leads to reduced recidivism, we're not all the way there. So it's kind of like we're tracking outputs, the difference between outputs and outcomes. We're tracking outputs still, and we haven't yet gotten to the point of outcomes. So it's a great question, and I'm a believer in getting to this point of getting to the outcomes, but that is more difficult than you would imagine it would be. But just to be frank, we're not quite all the way there.
No, thank you for your candidness and letting us know. I was just curious. That was all. As I was listening, I was just trying to keep reoccurring, asking, "Hey, how is it really impacting?" I know that it is.
Yeah.
I've worked the street a little bit. I get it, and so it's a great service.
And so it's the same thing here. Theoretically, I think it makes sense, right? If we help reduce those barriers, you're getting that mental health support, the substance use support, it should theoretically reduce recidivism, but I can't prove it yet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I will scroll better across my screen this time.
I have a quick question, Chair. This is Marie for the record. I was just wondering, Eric, because you said you operate in 6 counties. Do you mind mentioning what the other 4 are besides Story and Mineral?
Sure. So I'll just start with Story, where we started. We have both an early childhood education campus, as well as a 10,000 square foot community center that houses our library, before and after school and summer programs, primary health care and mental health services. We have a building, an office building that we own in Fernley that we offer domestic violence advocacy and counseling services out of. We also rent an office out of Dayton and Yerington. And we also have an office rented in Mineral County, where we provide in-home case management services, as well as some of the other support services that we mentioned. And we actually just took possession of their 6th Street historic 6th Street school that we will be rehabbing over the next year and a half, hopefully to make into a fully functional, again, comprehensive community center. We have mobile preschools that provide services in both Story and Lyon counties, as well as all the way down in Tonopah. We have a place-based classroom on wheels stop. That's the name of the preschool. Basically, it's for kiddos from 3 to 5 and their parents to make sure they have support for pre-K services. We have in-home case management services also in Mineral, Nye, Carson City, Lyon, Churchill, and Story counties. And then finally, we provide school-based mental health services and supports in both Lyon County and in Fallon in Churchill County.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Eric? All right, well, thank you again, Eric. We sure appreciate it, and good luck
Sure.
with the continued projects and hiring someone.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care, everybody.
All right, next we will hear from Ridge House, and I believe Nancy Lindler is going to be our speaker.
Yes.
Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I sent a PowerPoint. Do you want me to share my screen? Someone else going to do that for me. I also don't have to.
If you would go ahead and share your screen, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck on the technology here. Was I successful?
Yes, we can see that.
Winning. Okay. First of all, my name is Nancy Lindler. I'm the Executive Director for Ridge House. I want to just express our appreciation and gratitude for this opportunity, for the grant, and also for this presentation. Ridge House has been in existence since 1982. We've been in probation, parole, prison reentry, substance use, mental health. Our focus has been folks involved in criminal justice and substance use the entire time. Now is a good time for us to change our dynamic. Some of the reasons too are just because of the changing landscape of the severity of drugs and overdose death and all the things we all know are very tragic and happening, but also because of watching clients not be successful over time. So one of the things we know is true about substance use treatment in general is it's not very effective, this statistically speaking anyway. The standard statistic is that it takes 7 episodes of care for real change. If this was diabetes, that would not be happening. So I'm really looking to make some changes about things being sustainable. We need to address crime specifically. Criminal behavior, criminal thinking have addictive qualities for a whole host of reasons that intersect with a lot of other problematic attitudes and behaviors, family styles, all the things that lead you to prison and prison on repeat. What really came to my attention, and I think I mentioned this in our application, we have 3 individuals here that between the 3 of them, they had 100 years of incarceration time. that is profound. So we're really looking to have some transformative change so folks can get freedom from these cycles that are on repeat. Also, substance use treatment by history has been very pragmatic, very one size fits all, very go through our program. And I've heard over the years, I've been doing this longer than I'd like to admit, but I've heard over the years, well, they had a good program. Yeah, but did they change their life? Maybe they got signatures, maybe they did all the requirements, maybe they're just better at following along and getting, smile and nod and get through. But I want to really see that the change was transformative and that it really changed their life. The big piece that we're going to change is we want to bring a body focus, addiction at the cellular level. Everyone knows that the body is primarily involved in addiction, hence withdrawal, hence overdose, hence all the issues with cravings and all the things that happen. What we want to include these realities about how the human body and the brain interact. First of all, the body is governed by homeostatic principles, which that means stay the same, survive, don't change. If we don't help people start to understand this pattern and this process, they'll get a lot of new language. They'll talk about things in a new way, but they won't necessarily change what they do and why they do it. Human beings are social mammals. We bond together. Counseling is not magic, but family and community have a lot of magic to it. And we're really going to up our focus on creating an internal recovery community within this program. I put this little baby here because the piece that we want to really bring a focus on is how neural pathways in the body work. What fires together in the brain and the body wires together. You can check this out for yourself by doing a really simple thing. If you just take your hands and put them together and look at which thumb is on top, and then you unhook them and hook them back together with the other thumb on top, you notice you don't like the way it feels because this is a pattern that has been there longer than you can remember. Try brushing your teeth tonight with a different hand. You won't like it. It's repulsive. It's confusing, kind of almost disorienting. That's because these patterns are deep in our processing. So what fires together, wires together. Our earliest patterns stay in place, and this driven pattern-making system continues to operate through the lifetime. We know that criminal behavior has layers and layers of patterns to it, and we want to be able to address this explicitly so it can be reviewed and bring more of the true person up to the surface. What's going to need to happen here is two critical processes need to be happening simultaneously. And the biggest piece I'm changing about Rich House is it's not going to be a calendar-driven program. It's not going to be 4 months, figure it out or get out. And that's what it's kind of been in the past. So we're going to be more individualized, and we're going to help folks identify what it is they need to unlearn their criminal behavior, their going out on the weekend selling drugs, making 30 grand, feeling important and powerful because they committed some crimes or know people who did, or all the layers and layers that happen. And I have clients tell me, I don't really care if drugs aren't my thing. I'm addicted to stealing. Nobody's willing to talk to me about that. I've been shoplifting since I was 7. I can't go into Walmart and not steal something. I don't care about drugs. That's my problem. We're going to start addressing these things. Behaviors can become habits that operate under our consciousness, and we see that on a lot of different levels, and crime and substance use and mental health issues can have a lot of these patternistic qualities. The good news is the brain is always able to create new neural pathways, even though the current ones won't ever be removed. They can fade over time because when you stop using them, they lose their strength. So what's going to need to happen here is our clients need to learn how to tolerate things like stability, being substance free, being independent, being financially secure and stable, having plans for the future, having their relationships be repaired, lack of chaos, being able to have a peace of mind. All those things are things that our clients tell us over and over are very uncomfortable for them and have a lot to do with how they get squirrely and go sideways and are back committing crimes again, because they can't tolerate a socially acceptable life that doesn't involve criminal behavior and all the trappings that go with it. The unlearning has to happen. Stop doing the destructive behaviors and start to tolerate the healthy, more stabilizing behaviors. So just like riding a bicycle, and I picked the bicycle is because it's super common in our experience. And the thing about learning to ride a bike is, depending on where you start, you know, you can see this little guy here on the little, what you call this little push trike or something. There's a lot happening here. His vision's coming online, coordination of arms and legs. You've got a lot of bilateral brain stimulation happening. It's a whole wiring of the system that happens to lead him to this next phase where you start to have training and practice with support. So the training practice phase, it takes a while. There's social support, you know, your parents are saying good job, or your brother or whoever's helping you. And you can get excited. There's anxiety with this phase because it's new, but you have that support. And so part of this learning phase is we're going to help our clients start to learn how to be stable and to tolerate it, and to believe in themselves that they deserve it, or all the individualized things that might happen with that. So once they go through the intro phase to the training practice phase, we want to support them to start developing an early stage of competence. So the truth about riding a bike is once you learn it, it's always there. I haven't ridden a bike in 2 years. I don't need to read about it. I don't need to study it. I don't need to watch videos about how to do it. I could just hop on any bike right now and ride it down the street, because all those patterns and all that programming are deep in the system. They're deep in my memory, muscle memory, all the layers. This is true with addiction too. I have clients who are like, yeah, my dad gave me a beer when I was 4. I can't imagine that, but there's a lot of truth to some of those things that people say they've experienced. And that creates these deep, old patterns that have to be addressed. And the same is true with crime and criminal behavior. We need to address those explicitly. Because our prison reentry clients have so many layers, they also have to unlearn the prison mentality. They have to unlearn, learn how to be socially, to change their social values, to change their values with themselves, unlearn have their nervous system calm down from their years and years in prison. I can't imagine being 50 and have been in prison 7 or 8 times. Those are that's a lot. When you had more time in history in your life in prison as an adult than outside of prison, you could see how this process can be rather daunting. Some of the challenges of new learning, like I mentioned, the person who told me that, you know, his real problem was stealing. There's a lot of adrenaline with crime, sense of power, sense of belonging with peers. These social structures are a significant pull and a draw. A chaotic lifestyle, issues with their families. People at this level have disappointed a lot of folks, including themselves, their children, their children's mothers, their parents, their grandparents. These are all things that when they first start out, they don't think, they could never see those as being repaired. We're going to help them focus on that, to own their part and create some potential for relationship repairs. We're already doing that currently, and we've seen big success with that. It really helps people's sense of competence and confidence going forward. I put this guy on the bike here to just this example. From mastery to expert. I could never ride a bike like this. I wouldn't even try. but it's kind of the same thing. So I don't expect people to be jumping bikes off of buildings, but what we want to help them do is to get skills that they can live and breathe, that they have time to practice with us when they get nervous and they feel like they're going to fall down and things are going to go a certain way. We help them figure out their own problem solving skills and reinforce. And the community here is a big piece of that, because people who have had those shared experiences can give each other feedback. So we're going to bring a big treatment team and community feedback piece to this process. I want to back up for a second because there's something I wanted to add. I want to go back to this. So if we track, so when a child or a human being goes through this learning process, this little guy right here in the early stages of competence, he's probably going to fall down on this bike. He's going to hit a rock. He's going to go off the sidewalk. Something's going to happen. He's going to hit a tree stump. He's going to fall down. He might scan his knee and he might get really scared and nervous to ride a bike again. And he might say, I'm never doing that again, and quit. But somebody might say, no, get back on there. You can do this. It'll still be there. He can do it. He won't have to go all the way back here. He won't have to have training wheels because the learning will already be in place. That's what we want to try to create here. So clients have a deeper sense of self and identity, separate from being a felon and continuing to go back to prison, and have those relationship pairs. So they have a support network, so they have a better chance of being successful in all areas of their life. Then this last piece about how whole person care is multi-directional. So top down programming or interventions, a top-down practice is something that starts with your thoughts. So you create a cognitive change, that's top down. But when we're talking about the body, where every cell is involved in addiction, because the physiology of your body has to change to accommodate and create a need for a poison, which is what addiction is. So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. So if you don't address this bottom impact with the cells and how the body is involved and how you function, the top down doesn't really have anywhere to go. And so what you see happening is people have a lot of lip service for the changes they want to make, but when the stressors line up and the rubber meets the road, they don't stick. So we're going to include what's called a bottom up approach. And so that's helping people understand how the nervous system works, understanding their own internal states, start to realize, you know, boredom is just an emotion. I can tolerate it. And I learned how to do that. And here's what it is. And have time with the training wheels on to be able to have these new states start to feel normal. So with this new program, we're going to extend our time. We're changing our treatment focus. And we're building a much stronger recovery community. And throughout all of that, we're going to very explicitly address the criminal intersection of all these things, because the criminal behavior has multiples of patterns, and we need to help them get exposed so they can look at it. You can't bring it up to the surface, so you can have a critical eye on your own experience and your behaviors and the why and how you do things, how you function. It'll just be a lip service and it won't last. So we're really looking to impact recidivism in that way long term. And also, Ridge House is really positioned, we're in a position, and that's why this needs to change now, to have a really big impact, because we've been doing this a long time. And now we're going to get current and effective, and it will help families in the community at large and our clients be successful over time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any questions for Nancy? I actually have one.
Okay.
Fundamentally, your shift change and kind of how you're approaching things makes complete sense. Will you give just a few examples of where you're targeting the funding and the areas to actually make those transitions? Like, what are the big focal points that you're changing that the funding will be used for? I guess maybe that's the best way.
Oh, sure. So the funding is really going to help me or help us with staffing. I need the right staff.
Yeah, okay.
Because historically in the substance use world, and mental health too, but especially with probation or parole, counselors can tend to try to see themselves as an extension of the court or an officer, which, yeah, accountability is one thing. But if accountability was all there was, nobody would ever go to prison again. So there's more to it. So I need
Right.
staff that really get those concepts and can really meet people where they are, instead of just being, in the past, where justice has been really hard knocks. Well, you got to figure it out. Well, if they could figure it out, they would. So we need to meet them where they are, so we can help them figure out their challenges. They're not my challenges, they're theirs. That hasn't been my life. So we have to do that. And I really need, so the biggest piece is staffing. And then also to help us be able to elongate the program. So there's a big disconnect in this community about what you can bill Medicaid for and what you can cover. And so when we have clients coming out of prison to get a job, well, they lose Medicaid like that. So now what do I do? So that's a big piece of helping me make this more sustainable and effective.
Sure, thank you.
Of course.
Does anybody else have questions for Nancy? And I can't see all faces. Oh, it looks like JJ has a question. I see you this time.
No, I just had one question, is how is the whole person care multi-dimensional? Is it supported by, other programs or any data or anything like that, that it's going to work or it's a good idea? Just some simple answer. I don't need something too long and drawn out. That's all.
Sure. There are volumes and volumes of research about including the body in psychotherapy. When the Body Keeps the Score by Gabor Mate. He's a big guy talking about how the emotional states actually work in the body and how you have to address them to get lasting change. He's just sort of the forefront guy. All the trauma work. When the Body Says No, the Body Keeps the Score. There are tons of them. I can't think of the authors because I'm not very good at that. But I've seen that. We're going to also do EMDR. You have to address those trauma pieces, because when they're not addressed, they surface later and derail folks. So I don't know if that's answering a question, but that's a piece.
No, you answered it. And just to follow with that is just keep in mind of how you keep your records and your data on your success, how it is actually working or it's not working, so that you have that. Just for me, I keep adding that to everyone's, because we got to just fill that gap a little bit so we can say, hey, it is working and our money is going in the right spot and this is a good program. Okay?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally appreciate it. And that's I really appreciate your comment, because one of the things that has always been very bothersome to me in this field is that just like, I don't know, and that's never been acceptable to me. And so one of the pieces about the body and self-report, there's ways to create feedback from clients that will also be something we can track for that success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nancy? Okay, thank you very much. Our next presentation is from the City of North Las Vegas Youth Court, and I believe Erin is going to be our speaker.
Hi, good afternoon. Let me attempt to share my screen. One moment. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Right, I was having some mic issues earlier. My name is Erin Tejas. I'm the court administrator for the North Las Vegas Municipal Court. With this award, we were able to start a pilot program, which is the Youth Court Program, standing for the Youth Opportunities for Understanding, Transformation, and Healing. The youth program is a treatment court model for young adults between the ages of 18 and 24. They'd be facing misdemeanor criminal charges with the North Las Vegas Municipal Court. The goal of the program is really going to aim to reduce incarceration and criminal recidivism and support these young adults back into reintegration into society. We intend to do that by providing a pathway through mentorship, workforce development, reentry preparation, and planning and supportive services. The judicial team at the court consists of our Chief Judge, Chris Lee. He is in Department 1. We are not new to treatment courts altogether. Judge Lee currently oversees the CARE program, which is the community approach to rehabilitation engagement, which has both an adult drug court, a mental health court, and a veterans treatment court. We noticed that with the youth population or this young adult population, these traditional treatment court models really weren't the appropriate fit for that age demographic. We really realized that they needed more positive examples, a little bit more hand-holding, and a more kind of supportive community feel, which is what we are attempting to provide in this pilot program. So this pilot program will be overseen by Judge Courtney Ketter in Department 2. The need for youth court really for us was identified in a number of ways. In North Las Vegas, we have access to a great deal of data and noticed that we really had among that population with criminal charges had high recidivism rates around 43%. Young adults specifically, we've noticed, really face barriers to successful reentry, whether that's through lack of education, employment opportunities for that specific demographic, stable access to housing, mental health and substance abuse services. We noticed that impacts of the COVID pandemic on young adults really seem to have some level of disparate impact on their ability to kind of be successful in society today. And some limited opportunities. So the youth court program structure is a bit different, like I mentioned, than the CARE program that we have done with our traditional treatment court models. This model works, this pilot program is working in a cohort model, meaning that we are identifying 6 to 8 participants per cohort, and they will go through the entire program together. So they will start and ideally graduate together. Each court appearance, they'll be going through job training together and really kind of building a sense of community amongst themselves, in addition to, the growth and mentorship opportunities that they're referred to. We have a number of different ways that individuals can be referred into our program. The municipal court, we have a team of case managers that constantly review pre-books of cases filed in our court, and they're looking to identify people in the appropriate age group that might be a candidate. They would then visit them at the Community Correction Center and kind of explain the program to them, do an assessment if appropriate to determine if they would be an appropriate referral. We also get referrals from the Community Correction Center staff who are, seeing these offenders through the booking process or through classifications. We have received referrals through the police department, the crisis response teams, as well as our public defender. The timeline for these cohorts, we started cohort 1, their first court appearance was October 9th. So these individuals may have been initially arrested earlier than that and then identified as a candidate. They would have signed a participation agreement and an ROI prior to, but they pled into the program on October 9th, and that happened for our first cohort altogether. Cohort 2, we anticipate starting in mid-November. We've already started identifying potential candidates for that second cohort. And are planning to start that second cohort mid-November. And then our third cohort, we intend to start at the beginning of next year. Each cohort will be in the program for approximately 6 months. So what that model looks like during weeks 0 through 8, and that's approximate in that not all of these participants are arrested at the same time or the same date. So as we are identifying potential candidates and that clock starts ticking, they will, like I said, be identified as a potential candidate for the program. They will meet with a case manager, whether that's in or out of custody, For an assessment. We currently use the LSCMI as our assessment tool. It is a risk needs assessment that allows us to determine what level of need these individuals have, but also their criminogenic risk. We determine their needs for housing. Do they need, in addition to what the program is going to provide, do they need access to vital records? Do they have ID? Are they prepared to start in the workforce? And then we start developing kind of what that case plan for that individual is going to look like. Do they need access to continued education, GED programming, adult education? Do they need access to housing? So we do that sort of initial assessment of needs and then triage for those individuals before the cohort actually begins. And like I said, that is through individual meetings with a court case manager who's full-time staff here. Phase 2 is when the cohort would really begin. So that cohort introduction, they would all meet each other. They'll be meeting the judge. They commit to the program during a court session. And then for at least 8 weeks, they are working on-site job training with a community partner 5 days a week, approximately 8 hours a day. And that's really teaching them basic skills, learning how to show up to a job on time, how to clock in, how to clock out. They're receiving feedback. They're attending classes as well. But they're getting job training and job development. Our first cohort is being referred to Lighthouse Charities. So they're learning how to work in their community garden, how to assist with food distribution. And like I said, just really learning kind of adult life skills to be able to integrate into the workforce. They continue to have weekly check-ins with their assigned case manager through the court. They are subject to drug and alcohol monitoring for the duration of the program. And then we will check in with them physically in court at that halfway mark, so 4 weeks in. We get constant feedback from the case manager on site with Lighthouse Charities, and then we'll hear back from them at the end as well, at the end of the 8 weeks. Phase 3 is the personal development and support phase. So after the initial few weeks of job training and development, they then begin weekly programming here at the court. So they will have a weekly face-to-face court hearing with the judge, and they do that together as a group. And then immediately after court, we have class work and training that are specific to the needs of this demographic. So some weeks that focuses on financial readiness, some weeks that works with resume building, interview skills, parenting, just general life skills, nutrition planning. We have one of the current participants has had unmanaged medical issues for found out he's severely diabetic. And so some of that nutrition planning has factored in as well. They are also paired with a mentor that they will meet with outside of that court time from the community. We work with them with a case manager to find employment based on the skills and job training that they've already received. They're also referred to group therapy and other continued support services. Phase 4 is the transition into, preparedness for graduation. We will assess them as we kind of approach that 6-month mark. We will assess to ensure that they have stable employment and housing. Check in to see where we are on their education plan. Have they successfully completed either their high school diploma or GED? We will ensure that they've been connected to mental health providers, and depending on what their insurance level is, if they've already been, if they have employment or if that's through Medicaid. We will do the LSCMI assessment again as part of the pre-graduation assessment, and we'll use that to develop a post-graduation success plan for each individual. And then finally, at that 6-month mark-ish, we will have a formal graduation for all participants, and part of that includes getting their case that was before our court sealed, so that it's not providing a barrier to employment in the future. So the community partnerships we're building, we've made connections with a number of agencies to work with for that job development portion, some of which include, like I said, Lighthouse Charities, the Las Vegas Employment Project, and the Chef Jeff Project. In our grant application, we really wrote that to be very loose and flexible so that we could pivot as necessary. And as this is a pilot project, we really needed to ensure that we didn't pigeonhole ourselves into a place that we couldn't pivot out of if we determined something wasn't working well or appropriately. We are in our first week of our cohort 1 participants working full-time with the Lighthouse team through this cohort, and thus far it is going really, really well. We're getting incredible feedback from their team. They're being incredibly responsive. We're able to go with them and do site visits, things of that nature. And so that has been working out really, really well. But like I said, we're leaving ourselves open to develop additional relationships and really hopefully match each participant with a job training program that is of interest and applicable to them and where they are. So part of the evaluation for success in our program, we will continue to monitor evaluation to continue to evaluate the program to determine efficacy. So a lot of that is our ability to monitor recidivism. We obviously have the individual information to each of our participants, and we can verify that they've managed to stay out of trouble. We can measure their employment rates, whether or not they were able to attain the education sought out at the beginning of the program, measure their housing stability, health, and wellness, which is a little more subjective, and goal setting and self-reflection. We've assigned a point system to that so that we can have some base level to measure success in those ways. But we're able to measure it now at the beginning throughout the program, but then after graduation for each cohort to keep our thumb on the pulse of how successful this is being. As far as sustainability, we have a dedicated case manager that is funded through the general fund, dedicated entirely to serving this client base. I also spend a significant amount of time overseeing the program, but also we've had the ability to kind of leverage some of our existing programs in support of this youth court model. As far as key staff, as I mentioned previously, Judge Courtney Ketter is the judge presiding over the youth court proceedings. He will also be serving as a mentor to these individuals. I am the court administrator and serving as project manager. I provide oversight and strategic direction. Shanice Edwards is our case manager. She is a social worker, and she is the one that will be working primarily one-on-one with our participants. The city also has a really incredible team in the grants department. Leslie Nix is the director of grants. Samika Douglas is our grant officer for this project, and Leslie Solares Garcia is a grant accountant, which really, for me, frees me up to kind of navigate this the best way as far as the project goes, because they can provide so much assistance as far as navigating what needs to be done grant-wise. So we really feel that this is a unique opportunity to address the challenges that are faced by young adults that are facing criminal charges. We feel that this is a really comprehensive program. It's providing support, mentorship, job opportunities, the ability for growth. And the idea behind that is to obviously reduce recidivism, promote successful reintegration, and really create an appropriate path forward for these individuals. While this is a pilot program, and obviously we can't speak to its success yet, we do have, as I mentioned before, some basis for our positive outlook on this. The CARE program, which is our more traditional treatment court model, we have thus far graduated since 2021. 88 non-veteran graduates, 33 veteran graduates, and as of today, none of our graduates have reoffended locally. So we really feel that speaks very, very highly of the programming and the work with our case managers, and have been incredibly proud of the work of our graduates. This is just some insight into some of the graduates that we've had with our traditional CARE court programs.
And that is really a summary of everything that we're offering and hoping to do with the youth court program. I would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Erin. Are there any questions for Erin? Those statistics at the end are pretty amazing.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. That's all for you,
Sure.
if I may.
Go ahead, JJ.
No, yeah, again, I just think that the court program has a lot of data, a lot of staff, and a lot of ability to make an impact. So I really do like that team support family idea, of addressing it, doing it that way. But like I said to the others, just, I know you said you haven't been able, it's a pilot project, but again, keeping an eye on those. I think you said the youth court evaluation is great. So you can see the success and also the failures. Where you actually had to make a change and you identified some of those things so that maybe other courts can see your example and see that they can take it forward. Other than that, thank you for the presentation and all the information. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Erin? Don't see anybody. I think I scanned it all, so please yell out if I've missed you, but thank you again very much, Erin. We appreciate it and good luck on your project.
No problem. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Janet Blumen, an associate from Foundation of an Independent Tomorrow. Janet will be our speaker. Welcome, Janet.
Hi. This is Janet Blumen. I'm the founder and actually CEO of FIT, Foundation for an Independent Tomorrow. Michael and I are going to share our presentation today. Michael is our program director.
Can you all see our screen, the service flow chart?
Yes.
Okay.
So FIT was started 27 years ago to serve unemployed and underemployed Southern Nevadans. We have not been strictly a reentry project, but we have always had reentry clients. We have never discriminated or refused to serve anybody, either because of their past criminal history or because of the particular crimes of which they have been convicted. And that makes us very unique among service providers. We have always been successful in providing reentry services, but about 10 years ago, we decided to really specialize the program and build it, get us both in it, and build it to meet the challenges that we knew the reentry clients were facing that were very different than the challenges that other clients were facing. So there are three characteristics, I believe, that distinguish us and our program from any other. One is we match all clients upon their entry into the program one-on-one with the case manager. And they deal with that case manager one-on-one from then through their graduation, through employment, and a year of follow-up. I think the second is because each plan for every client is individualized based upon their aspirations, their abilities, and their backgrounds. And third, because we are holistic and we deal with every barrier that every client has to their success. We always keep in mind, though, that we have the means to our goal is employment. And we see that as the requisite of any reentry and anti-recidivism plan. Employment at a job that pays enough to support your family breaks old habits. It creates a new cohort of friends. Hopefully it disconnects the recidivist from the folks he was hanging out with before. And as they become self-sufficient, they gain the dignity and self-respect. And they learn that there really is another way, that if they're short of cash, that the answer is not to go sell a couple of drugs, but they're working a real good job and they have a career to advance. So our program starts for every client with orientation. And orientation is really one day. And during that one day, they learn about what FIT will and won't do, what we expect of them. And they fill out an application right on the spot. Then they go to job readiness class that very week and for the next week as well, at the end of which they are matched to their case manager. There is no delay between the application process and the entry into the program. And I think that's very important.
Absolutely. And then from there, they have their first meeting with the case manager, as you can see on the service flow chart. This is pretty much what all the clients go through. Some clients are different depending on their situation, but this is pretty much the basis of it. So in that first meeting with the case manager, I say this is where the magic starts. The case manager does a whole biopsychosocial assessment, and at that point, they're identifying barriers to employment, and resources are provided too. A blessing here at FIT is the majority of the case managers are licensed social workers, and we are very community connected. So we have a lot of partners on site. I always call ourselves the one-stop shop. We have a lot of partners on site, such as welfare, adult ed, social services, Job Connect. So we get clients triaged right on site and get their vocational plan and things started for them to get on the path towards success. FIT is very unique because we don't do cohort style models. The case manager meets the clients right where they are. They assess them. One-on-one case management is very important to us. And as Janet stated earlier, they keep the same case manager throughout the entire program, throughout the initial part and the follow-up. So they are building that rapport. The case manager is their counselor, they're their teacher, they're their friend. So they just have that support system along the way. And I think that's what has made our program successful the 27 years that we have been in business.
And they pick out their own career and they decide what they want to advance to. And they do their budget. So they figure out, you know, if I get this job, I really can support my family.
Absolutely. All the clients go through a skills assessment. So depending on what kind of training, we want to make sure that they're able to read, to comprehend, you know, that they're going to be able to be successful in training. All of the trainers that we utilize, they receive an industry recognized credential. So they do have to take some type of exam or test to pass that course. So we want to make sure that they're successful in that. If they are not making the part to that assessment to where they're scoring low, we do have tutoring in-house. So we will basically do everything we can to make sure the client is successful.
And we interview them to make sure that they really have the motivation, that they understand what they're getting into. And as Michael said, if they're lacking the reading ability that they need, we're not just going to stick them in the class anyway. We're going to help them get the reading ability.
Absolutely. Then next is a drug test and background check. We drug test all of our clients because we want to make sure that they are ready for training. If they are having any issues, we will identify that. We do have partners on site that we can assist with CADC and things like that, counseling. And then the vocational plan. At this point, the client has done the labor market research with their case manager. The client has identified their career goal and training has been planned out and funding. So the case manager will draft up a whole vocational plan tailored to that client. Then the enrollment, the client will attend trainings. Trainings are different depending on length, depending on the actual training. Vocational training is very important to us because we realize that from training leads to employment, and employment is a key factor in reducing recidivism or the likelihood of the client returning to incarceration.
And not just any employment, not flipping hamburgers, but at a job that will lead to some career advancement, that will be able to support their families, and that will give them some self-satisfaction and feeling of belief.
Absolutely. We have a lot of different vocational trainings that the clients can choose from, some that are in high demand, and they're all different. Electrician training, for example, the price is $7,300. That includes tuition, that includes workforce prereqs and all that. This program is at no cost to the client, so we cover all of that. CDL, commercial driver's license, HVAC, welding, forklift operator, plumbing, professional cook. These trainings are in high demand. We offer a lot more, but we tailor those clients to the reentry population. We have a job developer on site that works with second chance employers. We have about 33 right now that we work with to get those clients squared away once they finish training. And we realized that the training from just being here at FIT, we realized the training offers employment opportunities, reduction in recidivism, increased self-sufficiency, reduce reliance on social services, because our goal is for all clients to be self-sufficient, breaking the cycle of poverty, opportunities for family support. Employment enables the clients to support their families, which can improve the overall well-being of the client and the generations to come. Building positive community relations, personal development. Employment is a part of our character and identity. So that is restoring the confidence and dignity for a client. And then it's helping with further education. Sometimes the training that the client goes to is the first step on a career ladder. So we definitely want them to advance.
We measure our success in 4 quantifiable objective measurements. We always have since 2009. I think we have all the statistics. The first quantifiable, measurable success is the number of people employed. We, of course, keep track of how many people we serve. But more important to us is that they become employed. So the first objective measurement of success is number of people employed. The second is the amount to which their income increases, because we want them to be self-sufficient. And the third is the amount by which their dependence on public assistance decreases. Again, the goal is decreased to 0. And fourth, we measure, of course, the recidivism. I just have to tell you how proud I am of our staff, led by Michael, who, again, I'll brag, is right now a doctoral candidate at UNLV. But our ongoing recidivism rate with a long history, and this, we're not talking months or weeks, but years. The national average recidivism, as you well know, over 3 decades has been 43%. The statewide recidivism rate is about 24.43. Our recidivism rate runs between 1% and 4%, which I think is unbelievable. This year we're averaging 3. I just couldn't be more proud. We have 825 people have become employed through the reentry program this year because of FIT. So I would invite each of you to come for a tour of our facility to see how we function, because I think it's a program that the clients certainly enjoy.
Absolutely.
So do you have any questions of us?
Any, I have a question or more of
Yes,
a
go
comment.
ahead. I was trying to get my mute off, but yes, I was looking to see if your hand was up. Go for it.
No, that's okay.
Go for it.
No, thank you for your hard work and your dedication and continuing to reduce recidivism. The only thing I didn't see was your actual chart that showed all what you just talked about, the recidivism rates and things like that. I don't know if you showed that or not, but I could just hear it in your language that you guys are a good program and you are making an impact in your area. The only thing I would like to see is just again, the actual, what you just said on paper that shows me that, this is a success. I know you're telling me, I just like to see it. Other than that, great program. Thank you.
How many years would you like us to
Yeah,
go
we
back?
got data. We love data here. So we have
No, you don't have to go in. Maybe if you wanted to get some historical data and moving forward, but if you just had something present so that people can see and measure your success and you can actually show it on paper that we are doing these things and it is making an impact, and vocational training is our bailiwick over here. So much appreciated. Thank you.
I think you will see when you see our numbers too, how much impact money from organizations like yours mean to us, because our numbers are the number we can serve fluctuates up and down depending on funding. And we are very appreciative to have been included in this program.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do we know how to get a hold of him?
All righty, I don't see another. Thank you guys very much for your presentation and good work. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Our final speakers today are Cody Drews and Maxine Courts. Sorry if I said that incorrectly, from Carson City Judicial Municipal Court. So Cody and Maxine will be our speakers.
Hi, everyone. I'm Max Cortez. Cody actually took the lead with this, but I'll be available if there's any other questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, the same old question that we always have. Can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, again, for this opportunity, and thank you for being here this afternoon. So my name is Cody Drews. I'm the Assistant Court Administrator for the First Judicial Carson City Justice and Municipal Court. Particularly what I'm here to talk about today is our mental health court program. So our mental health court program is actually one of 5 specialty courts that we have in the First Judicial District. The focus specifically for mental health court is on supervision and monitoring of participants via individual treatment plans. I'll go into that more later, why we take that approach. But it's really challenging with some of these individuals because they have a lot of different problems that are posed by having being in that mental health kind of society, if you will. So it's hard for courts, it's hard for law enforcement, it's hard for those individuals because they have social issues, they have economic needs, housing, job placement, etc. So those are the individuals that our mental health court specifically attempts to help. Before I get too deep into our mental health court program, I kind of want to just started with a overview. So the mental health court in Carson City for the Carson Municipal Court has been around for 19 years. Depending on the individual, it takes anywhere from 18 to 36 months to actually complete the program. Aspects of the program are like monthly supervision, drug testing, daily or weekly or monthly, depending on the individual. It's also important to note that this is a multi-jurisdictional program. So it's located here in Carson City under the Carson City Justice Municipal Court, but we also have participants from the district court and surrounding counties, Douglas, Lyon, Washoe. We're really open to any individual who can benefit from this program. Some of our treatment providers are like rural clinics. We have a licensed clinician, community counseling center, clinical psychologists. We have housing, Spirit of Hope, which I will go into more detail as well. There's some statutory authority that gives us the ability to run this program. Currently, we actually have 27 participants, but because of the grant funds, we actually can go up to 45. And then just some statistics. So within the last year and a half, a little more, we've had 16 graduates, and of those 16, 4 of them have reoffended and we're back in the system. So like previously mentioned, this special court program is for participants who are diagnosed with a mental illness and who have committed crimes. Because of that, there are certain criteria that we're looking at to actually be accepted into the program. So these are some of the examples, but obviously it's not limited to this, of what you have to be diagnosed with. In addition to committing a crime to enter the program, there's also some other facts such as your sentencing judge, whether it's from our court here in Carson City or Douglas or Lyon, whatever the case is, they have to agree that this is the best approach for the participant and that they're actually appropriate for the mental health court program. And then obviously they can't be felony domestic violence or felony DUI. Those people are not eligible for the program whatsoever. So let me briefly kind of introduce you into our mental health court team, and then I'll talk specifically about some of the ones that we're using some of the grant funds to kind of help in the program. So the mental health court team is, to put it simply, it takes a lot of people, a lot of time to ultimately run this program. So it starts with the judge, but we also have the district attorney's opinion. We have public defender. We have our Department of Alternative Sentencing, who's responsible for supervision, drug testing, etc. A licensed psychologist. We have a licensed clinician. We have housing. So specifically, like I highlighted here, Spirit of Hope is one of them. We also have community counseling. There's a bunch of treatment providers, health and human services, sheriff's office, state parole, us at the court, and even the State Department. So you can see this slide, there's a lot of individuals that it takes just to run this program, just so that we can get through the day-to-day of it and operate it as smoothly as we have. So like I mentioned, specifically, I wanted to go into more depth with two of those team members. The first one is Spirit of Hope. So the Spirit of Hope Sunrise House is we're currently using some of the grant funds from you guys to continue this service. So this service, is vital and critical to the program and to the participants. Individuals who have mental health, they can't just go anywhere. There's certain criteria that we have to kind of vet out because they may not get along with this person. They may not get best practices as far as specialty courts go. We don't want to intertwine them with other people who don't have mental health issues, whatever the case may be. So we leverage this Spirit of Hope Sunrise House to provide that clean, sober, drug and alcohol-free place for them to live. It is a transitional house. They don't stay here forever in the program. The goal of this house is just to have that solid base so that an individual who is in the program can ultimately have the ground underneath them to stand on so that they could be successful in other aspects of the program, such as getting a job. It may be co-occurring occurrences. So they may have some drug-related issues. They have their mental health disorder that they're dealing with as well. So by having this option that Spirit of Hope provides, it allows the participants and the team members to place individuals in this home. And it's one less thing that individual has to worry about right off the bat. And we can kind of start focusing on what's really important, and that's their mental health aspect, or if there's co-occurring instances, and we can get those individuals essentially on the right step. Without this Spirit of Hope home, that wouldn't be a possibility for some of them, because like I said, placement is extremely hard and challenging for these individuals. So this is just a couple of some more statistics for the Spirit of Hope Sunrise House. So again, within a little over a year and a half, that house is constantly full. So you could see it's got about a 98.5% occupancy rate. I can say within the last 6 months, probably actually closer to 8 months, that house has been occupied 100%. There's a wait list for people to get into that home. So once somebody leaves, there's somebody else to replace them. We've had over that period about 4,200 beds filled, meaning those individuals have slept in beds during that period, 4,200 times. So again, it's specifically right now just for the mental health court participants, and their average stay is usually about 6 months. It kind of depends on the individual, it depends on where they are in the program, depends on how the mental health court team is feeling, if they need a little longer, if they need shorter. Those are all items that we take into account depending on the individual. The other piece that I wanted to speak more about was the licensed clinician. So this again is an individual who is on the team, and they are critical because they are working closely with the psychiatrist to figure out the mental health side of the individual. So what's best for them, what medications potentially they need to get on, what the actual treatment plan looks like. So this individual, like I said, works closely with that psychologist and the other team members to make sure that those individuals are attending counseling, they're doing what they're supposed to, they're taking their medicine, they're progressing in the program, and they're not just stalling out and staying where they're at. So this individual is critical, like I said, and grant funding is currently for this individual to expand because we were, prior to grant funds, we were about 30 people. And now with the grants, we can actually have this individual and we could have more participants of the program. So like I said, 30 was what we were at about last year. With the grant funds, we're able to go up to 45. So those two specific areas that I spoke about, as well as the rest of the team, they're all working to accomplish these mental health court goals. So it's not only the comprehensive mental health services for the eligible defendants, but we're also trying to protect public safety, reduce recidivism, reduce jail, prison. Some of the participants are looking at either significant jail time or prison time. And this is a diversion program. So if they can complete it successfully, then they may actually not have any more jail time or any more prison time. The other critical piece of this program is it's long-term. We want to develop the aftercare for these individuals. So we don't just want you to come to get accepted into the program, complete it, and then, not have any resources after the fact. So we want them to know that, with their mental health disorder, that this is what they should be doing. With housing, we want to work towards long-term housing for them, job placement, things of that nature. So it's really that aftercare linkage in multiple facets of these individuals' lives that the mental health court really is focused on. The other piece is we're just trying to engage these participants into treatment. So it's like I mentioned earlier, it's challenging because of the nature of the individuals that we're dealing with in this program. But with all those team members involved, the Spirit of Hope and the licensed clinician, it makes it that they have a lot of resources at their exposure, and they can ultimately, have the pieces that they need when they need it so they can be successful, not only in the program, but after they leave the program as well. This kind of goes with the goals. So again, what we're really trying to do in the core at the mental health court program is to break that mental health court participant cycle. So you could see it starts with mental health issues. They commit a crime, then the courts get involved. There's usually some kind of incarceration. If no treatment is there, then it just goes back to the mental health issue, and the cycle starts over again. So by accomplishing those goals and having all those individuals having the resources at their dispense, we're hoping to ultimately break this cycle. And by breaking the cycle, it's better for them, it's better for the public, it's better for the courts, it's better for law enforcement, it's better for everybody. So that's ultimately, when it really boils down to it, what the goal of the mental health court is. Hopefully, if we can break that mental health court cycle, then they can actually graduate from the program. So these are some requirements for the graduation of the mental health court. Again, this is a team approach. So they don't graduate even if they have 6 months of sobriety and 90 days of no sanctions. They don't have any more criminal behavior. They're attending their meetings, but they really have to be signed off by that mental health court team, which includes the treatment council, the mental health court judge, and all those players that I listed in an earlier slide. If anyone feels that that individual is not ready, even though they may have everything on paper to graduate, we're going to invest more time and more resources to make sure that when they actually complete the program and graduate, they can stand alone. They do have a job. They do have long-term housing. They are productive members of society. So that is ultimately the goal. And it's easier said than done sometimes, because these individuals that we deal with, like I mentioned before, it needs to be an individualistic approach, because what works for one individual does not work for the other one. So it's not like we could just process these people in and out and follow the same pattern. It takes significant amount of time from the team members, from everybody who's involved, to ultimately get them to where they need to be, and where everyone is comfortable that the individual can actually move on and be a productive member of society. So pretty much to conclude, so it's that the mental health court program really is a non-traditional adjudication approach that provides each participant with support and understanding for their mental health condition, because that's critical to their long-term success, as well as a balance of holding people accountable for their actions. This is a diversion program, so in no way is it meant just to get out of jail. I will admit some participants probably look at it that way, but once they really get into the program, they realize that it's a benefit to them, and it's more than what just face value of the program looks like. So without really a program of this nature and the services provided by funding from this grant, individuals suffering from mental health issues are prone to continue their criminal behavior, their substance abuse, and repeatedly be sentenced to prison and jail. So the whole reason the mental health court here is to kind of break that cycle, give the participants what they need, and allow for them to, like I said, be members of society that can contribute and are no longer in jail, no longer looking at prison time, and can live on their own. With that, are there any questions that you have or any comments that I can clarify?
JJ, should I just look to you first?
Yes. Sorry.
Go
Just
for
real
it.
quick. Just real quick, thank you, sir, for for the program overview. Again, like some of the other programs, I'm just looking at the cycle of your MHC success rates for each category, so you can kind of help show and demonstrate over the last year how things are actually, going, like reducing in crime, that type of thing. That would just help illustrate a little bit more to see the measurable qualities of your program. Other than that, thank you very much for your service, and I know it's a lot of hard work.
I appreciate it, and that's definitely something that I will look into.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Cody or Maxine? She's still there. All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Mental health courts, I'm part of the team here, so have a lot of passion for them.
Before I sign off, I just wanted to say on behalf of the courts, thank you very much for the grant funding opportunity. It really has helped the mental health court. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? All righty, we are going to go ahead and conclude this agenda item. We're going to move on to agenda item 6. We're going to talk about dates for the next council meeting. Will be posted soon. If there's any suggestions for a change to a day of the week or time, please let us know. So does anybody have any comments on that at this moment? As always, our staff are already working on more topics and items for discussion, but does anyone have anything to be considered for future meetings that they'd like us to share or hear about? And yell at me if I'm missing anybody. I really am trying to scroll and see. All righty, I guess we will close that agenda item and move to our last public comment. I will open the second period of public comment, just as we did during the first period of public comment. Those who wish to testify may do so by telephone. Due to time constraints, public comment will be limited to 2 minutes. Any member of the public that exceeds the 2-minute limit, you may submit your testimony in writing to the Department of Sentencing Policy at sentencingpolicy@ndsp.nv.gov. Callers, as a reminder, please mute the device you are watching the meeting. You are on watching the meeting. All sound will come through your telephone. At this time, we'll ask staff to manage and direct those who wish to testify. Ms. Jones, I turn it to you.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public who would like to testify by phone, press star 9 to raise your hand. When it's your turn to speak, press star 6 to unmute, then please slowly state and spell your first and last name. And we have no one who wishes to participate in public comment.
Thank you. That concludes our second period of public comment. Well, great work, everyone. Thank you to the staff and the members of the council and our presenters. We appreciate all of that, and we look forward to our continued effort. This meeting is now adjourned.